Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The Pope's whirlwind tour of America continues. The Pontiff just wrapping up his first ever U.S. Mass, and tomorrow morning he will be heading to Capitol Hill to address Congress. Karen Travers, she is live at the Basilica with the very latest, and she joins us from our nation's capital.
Good evening. A very busy first full day here in the U.S. for Pope Francis. And taking place behind me right now is the largest event of his stop here in Washington. 25,000 people on hand here at Catholic University to watch the Pope celebrate Mass. His homily focused on a theme of moving forward, which is what he said you have to do to keep your heart from going numb, and you can't let apathy rule life. At the largest Catholic church in the United States, history was made. 25,000 people on hand for a massive canonization for Junipero Serra, an 18th century Franciscan monk and the first person made a Catholic saint on U.S. soil. Pope Francis's first full day in the nation's capital began at the White House. 11,000 people packing the South Lawn, silent as they awaited the Pontiff's arrival, their cheers exploding as he pulled up the driveway in that tiny Fiat he rode in yesterday. It was the same pomp and circumstance shown to world leaders, but for the 70 million American Catholics, it was personal. President Obama speaking of Pope Francis's profound moral example.
A leader whose moral authority comes not just through words, but also through deeds.
And in rare remarks in English, the Pope diving into a thorny political issue, climate change.
Mr. President, I find it encouraging that you are proposing an initiative for reducing air pollution.
Pope then ditched the Fiat for the more familiar Pope-mobile for a parade near the White House. Eager spectators lining up for hours to catch a glimpse of this revolutionary church leader. And later at St. Matthew's Cathedral, a prayer service with the nation's bishops, where Pope Francis acknowledged the pain of the sexual abuse scandals and made it clear church leaders need to reevaluate the example they're setting. Today was ceremony, and tomorrow will be policy, and some of it may be controversial. Pope Francis will address members of Congress, the first pope to ever do so, and he's expected to lay out his progressive views on immigration reform and income inequality, which he says all stand with the doctrine of the Catholic Church. Reporting live from Washington, Karen Travers, ABC News.
Thank you very much, Karen. And joining me now, a special guest, Manhattanville College chaplain, Reverend Wil Tyrrell. Now, the Reverend, he had the honor of meeting the Pope over the past summer, and he will be there in person at Ground Zero Friday for the Pontiff's visit. And we are following the Pope every step of the way in his visit. Tomorrow, of course, he will again be addressing Congress, starting the day in D.C., and then making his way eventually to New York before the balance of it. But let me bring in the Reverend right now. And first off, for those people who read the Journal News, the paper Record in the Valley, they right on the front page of it this week, Pope asked you to pray for him. Give the context of that meeting and how surreal that must have been.
Sure. It was surreal. That's a great term. It was in the context of a Buddhist Catholic dialogue, Buddhist Catholics from the United States over in Rome. We were at the Castle Gandolfo, the Pope's summer residence. And we had the conference there, and we got a phone call confirmation Monday evening we would be able to have a private audience with the Pope in Rome. So we were there early in the morning, waiting about an hour, lots of tension, good tension. And the Pope came in, and it was a fabulous moment, complete quiet, and you had this sense of a very engaging person who just entered the room. And he literally went one by one to the Buddhists and then to the Catholic participants and spoke with us, shook our hands, hugged us, bowed, whatever was appropriate. And it was a phenomenal moment. It was almost where time stopped in that moment, and it felt like an eternity of real goodness and engagement. It was a great experience.
And for the folks out there, whether they're laity or people of different faiths or not even connected to a faith, who don't follow denominations, explain the connection, the Franciscan connection that you have, and the commonality in that the care for the poor and those less fortunate, because that's a constant theme from this pontiff.
It is. You know, he's a Jesuit, a priest. He took Francis of Assisi as his name. I'm a Franciscan Friar of the Atonement from Garrison Graymore. And so we have that connection of the spirituality of St. Francis, which is multifaceted. It's for the poor, for the people in the streets with your everyday person, just like Francis of Assisi. And Pope Francis did that as bishop, archbishop, cardinal, and now as pope. He also is involved with the environment. That's another aspect of Franciscan spirituality. St. Francis is a patron saint of the environment, of animals. And so Pope Francis actually has that thrust. His latest document, Laudato Si', is not only a document on climate change, but it's on the care of creation. And we as humanity, regardless of religion or non-religious stance, we are stewards of this earth and how we need to really amend our ways so that we can allow other generations to prosper. He's for the poor. He's for the alienated, the down and out, and those who are forgotten. He's also for people who engage on religious levels. So the Buddhist Catholic dialogue, he loves that. He has personal friends who are Pentecostals in Argentina, as well as a co-author with the rabbi from Argentina. So he's open to dialogue.
And we're looking at a live image of the pontiff in our nation's capital now. And you know, there was an expression that he said, which is get out in the streets to other clergy. And I connote it, and again, I'm in the pews while you guys are at the front, that we heard all the words, especially after the abuse scandal, that the lady must be heard, but there were more words. He's been action. And it isn't just that the doors are opening and that there should be connectivity with the people, especially those less fortunate, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, but it's also that he's letting some fresh air in, and not everybody's comfortable necessarily, not just at the Curia, but at other levels. I've heard some seniors on Sunday giving sermons where it's not so veiled that they don't like this modernity that's being brought in the church. There is, and I don't think it's inside baseball, but there is an internal schism between the old and what he's proposing right now. That's also part of the audience this week, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. And you can see that in the analysis by media folk like yourself, journalists, commentators. But you see it on your everyday Catholic person in the pew, like you are. And there is this kind of tension. He's very progressive. He's forward looking, and he's out in the streets with people, embracing them. And he's not letting go of doctrine. He's holding strong to who he is as a Catholic and Catholic theology, but his gestures speak volumes, more so than any document. And that's an embracing Pope, an embracing church that all people should find a place for. And so, yes, some are hesitant to receive him, but I think he will slowly draw them along. He's more comprehensive than what we are kind of pointing out, at times.
Talk about where, and I use the church in a broader term, but where Catholicism is right now. And for people who think it's a problem of the U.S., they need to pay attention, because this is a problem that they'll find right now in Europe. They'll even find it in South America, where this Pope hails from. There's declining numbers and certainly changing faces of who's there. Do you think the disconnect for many is because they don't believe that the church of their parents or their grandparents is the church for them right now? Do you think it's specifically on social issues that maybe the church may be out of step with the public on? Why do you think this disconnect, and how possible is it that some of those old Catholics could be brought back into the fold?
Right. That's an interesting comment, because Pope Francis does not want to reduplicate our grandparents' church. We don't want to be part of our grandparents' church in many ways. Our world speaks to us differently. Our issues are different from the past. And Francis realizes that. He's, 78 years old, so he's from our grandparents' generation. But what he is very much aware of is that he needs to bring both the older generation and the newer generation together as church. He needs to look at the more progressive, liberal, and the conservative, if you will, the more traditional. He needs to balance that out, and I think that's what he's learning is difficult no matter where he goes. The church is complex. And so, the English-speaking church, Catholic church in the USA might be declining in numbers. The Latino Roman Catholic Church is exploding. In my area in college, Catholic youth aren't always going to church, but they'll do community service. They'll do volunteer. They want to get out and help. And that's where Francis is key for the young people today.
And the imagery. I mean, it's something as simple as getting off the plane at Andrews Air Force and getting into a Fiat.
Right.
He's going to be seen over the course of this week. He's going to be feeding the homeless tomorrow. He's going to be going into prisons, talking to inmates. He's going to be doing things, even something as simple as not getting the red slippers and the footwear and stuff. It's not just words. I mean, you've had a private audience with him, and again on Friday you'll be there. He believes this and he lives it, and it's not just, as he says, for the, I think he calls it the airport bishops, the airport bishops who are going from junket to junket. He's like, get your hands dirty and get out where the people need you.
He has openly criticized clerics who are, he calls them clerical monsters. They're all about the power. They're all about the wealth and the prestige. He wants us to move away from that. He wants us to get our hands dirty and get into the streets with the people, because that's what the gospel is about. And he also looks at the hierarchy as in need of change. Right in the Vatican, all the way throughout the church, throughout the world. Yeah. It needs to be transformed. It needs to have the focus of the people of God. That's his theology, that's his focus. That's why his actions speak so loudly to many of us, and they unnerve others, because it's calling all of us for that transformation.
Well, Reverend, we go back all of 10 minutes, but I do get the sense that, like so many people, that, you know, everybody's got, I'm pretty good at predicting what things will rate and what won't. The numbers will be through the roof when it's said and done for the Philadelphia event, for MSG, for the people are so enthralled by this Pope that aren't even Catholic. Yes. But on a personal level, has your faith in a lot of ways, if not been renewed, be reinvigorated by the new Pope? And what's it going to be like for you on Friday?
Absolutely, it's been reinvigorated. It's also been captured in a whole new light, I think. And so Friday, being in a multi-religious atmosphere with some friends that I was with in Rome at that conference, meeting new people as well, is just another sign. Times are changing. Times are alive and well. The Spirit's moving, and we need to move along with that for the human flourishing of all peoples, not just the Catholic, but for all of humanity. And that's where Pope Francis comes out, I think, on top.
Well, stay with us. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to bring Andrew and Dominic in, because certainly politics a big part of this. Tomorrow, this Pope making history of sorts here as he'll address a joint session of Congress, and a lot of issues in a political season will certainly be front and center. So it didn't take long for that visit to certainly stoke some emotions. We'll get into that on those hot button topics like immigration and global warming and much more right after this.